Welcome to my garden. In today's video, you probably guessed it, we're going to be making this garden playground. I have to say my kids absolutely love it, and I'm pretty sure that if you made that for your kids, they would love it as well. So watch the video. Alright then, that's the wood I'm going to be using for today's project, and there is a lot of it. First of all the beams I've got prepared, I'm going to sand them down for a nice and smooth finish. Okay then, so the beams, as you can see, they're nicely sanded and ready to go for the next stage. Now, to connect all the beams, I'm actually going to be using these three-way metal connectors, okay? They're not too expensive and they make the job out of this so much easier and quicker. Okay, so this is the first arc where we're going to do the cross brace. As you can see, I already put a level. Thanks God I hadn't one that long. Basically, that's the bottom position of our beam. Okay, so I've established that. I made sure everything's level, and I'm making a mark where the bottom of the beam will go. Now, roughly, I know how long the beam will be, the cross brace, which is 130 centimeters, and I'm going to cut that up on my miter saw. Now with the cross beam in place, I can actually mark it up on the main arc, so I know exactly what I need to make the cuts. Right, so let's sort out the bottom of the legs as well, as we are marking everything to cut out, and you'll have to do it for every single leg piece. Okay, so as you can see at the moment, it's resting on one of the edges of the beam itself, and I want that to be flat. I've got this really cool angle finder from Trent. It's got one thick piece and one thin piece, plus you've got a digital readout and a few other bits and pieces. Really cool little tool here, guys. So basically I'm going to rest it like so, put this against the floor, and I can see I've got 60 degrees. I'm going to lock that up. Okay, and then I can marry it up with the edge just over here, and now I can make a line and I'll know exactly where to cut. As you can see, I'm using my track saw from Evolution to make series of cuts. So basically I will be able to create a channel for the cross brace. I think it's just the easiest and the quickest way to do this. However, you know, you can use a router as well if you wanted to. Just going to be making several passes, and later on I'll finish it up with a chisel. And let's give it a test fit. Perfect fit. And now I'm going to do exactly the same thing with the other leg, and later on with the second A-frame. Now I've set up my miter saw to cut off the ends of the legs. So basically they will sit flat rather than just on the point of the beam. And like so, I'm going to cut off the ends of the feet on all 8 pieces. With my trusty miter saw, I'm now cutting the beam into 2 pieces, 118 centimeters each. These will become the supports for the platform. With the support beams for the platform cut to the right size, again I'm using my miter saw to create 1/2 of the half lap joinery that we're going to use to actually put the frame, the bottom support for the platform itself. And the second part of the half lap in the other piece, that's the cross brace on the A-frame, that I'm going to sort out with a router and a chisel. Okay, now it's time to seal the timber. As I said before, it is treated timber, however, we still need to secure it from the outer elements, and I'm going to be using a sealer with a stain straight away with 2 coats, D-nibbing in between. That should be plenty enough for a few years to come. As you can see, I've got everything nicely laid out in my garden. Now to connect all the pieces, I'm just going to be using these carpenter screws. They are self-driving in, however I'm going to pre-drill holes for them anyway. Large heads to hold the timber together nicely. The one I just showed you, that's 80mm thickness and 80mm long. This one is 8mm thickness and 120mm long, so should give me nice stability. I'm also going to be using these metal anchors on every single leg to make sure everything's nice and stable and it's not going to fly away. I've got 8 bricks as well on which the legs will stand on, so there's no contact with soil. And as you can see, all the joinery has been cut out. Everything is laid out nicely, ready for assembly. First of all, we need the metal bracket to go onto the legs themselves. Next, the support beam that I've cut out, and it fits absolutely snugly and perfectly. Just gonna work a couple of clamps to put everything together, as I'm gonna be lifting this up in a second to drive in the first screw. And at this point, I'm just gonna be putting one screw just to hold it in place. I'm not gonna do it up fully, just to have that little bit of a wiggle room. With the aim frame now standing upwards, I'm just pre-drilling a hole for the carpenter screw to go through and hold the support beam in place. I'm just putting together the second A-frame. This one does not have the support beam through the middle of it. Now with the help of my lovely wife, I managed to put through the top beam through the bracket, and I'm just gonna put it in the correct place from one side and secure it with a screw. And what I forgot to do is to put these metal brackets on the beam itself before actually putting it through the big metal bracket. Now, schoolboy error, obviously I need to take this apart now and put the brackets through. There's no other way of actually disassembling them. They need to go on the beam itself before it goes through that bracket. So again, with the help of my lovely wife, we just done that, disassembled everything, put the metal brackets through and back in the main bracket. Now these are super easy and helpful when you're trying to put a swing on them or anything like that. Now as you can see, I'm just measuring about 50 centimeters of an overhang, and that's for one of the swings I'm going to attach later on. And with that done, I'm just going to secure the beam with one screw from this side at the moment. Okay, it's time for the middle part. Okay, this one is a little bit easier. As you can see, I'm just using my ladder to put everything in place, so it's not going to fall on each other. I'm just using the support beams for the platform. They just go like that, easy peasy. Driving the carpenter screw so it's all in place, and then again with the help of my lovely wife, I'm putting through the middle beam and securing it with a screw. This time I managed to remember the metal brackets in the middle, as you can see. Now with these longer screws, I'm going to connect the support beams with the main A-frame. And I have to say, these are really good. They do add a lot of strength and stability to the frame. As mentioned before, I don't want the legs to be just directly on the ground, so I'm just digging a little bit of the grass and soil, and I'm going to put this brick, and the whole construction will go on the brick, so there's no contact of the timber and the ground itself. Now it's time to install the anchors and make sure everything is nice and stable. So basically just hammer these in until they are fully covered, and you can see there's 2 holes through which you can secure the whole construction with the carpenter screws again. And I have to say that added so much strength and stability. So now it's time to start hanging things. At the moment I've got this rope here, but it's all easy and interchangeable, and you can put everything you want. So secured it with the screw, and now tighten in the joint itself. Now it's time for the rest of the equipment and the same process of securing everything. Now you definitely want to get this right, so make sure the measurements and the brackets, everything's in the correct places according to the sheets provided with all the swings. And that's what we've got at the moment. I've got the rope, I've got the swings, I've got the ladders. However, still the major thing to do is the platform just here in the middle with the fence around it, a climbing wall and a ladder to get on top. So that's the next step we're going to be tackling right now. We need to cut all the timber to correct sizes for everything, and for that again I'm using my miter saw. Again, fairly boring and repetitive. I've set up a stop block, as you can see, on the end to make the slats equal sizes. With my thickness planer, I'm just taking all the boards to the correct dimensions. And with my table saw, I'm taking all the slats to the correct width, which is in my case 8 centimeters. Now all the parts here, I'm adding a very strong round over. I just don't want to have any sharp edges here, guys. Make sure to do that as it adds that quality and it will help with the water running off them a little bit easier. And again, we need to seal the wood, and I'm using the same product I did for the beams themselves. For greater strength and stability of the platform in the middle, I'm adding this beam. This time I'm just going to be driving in those long carpenter screws, the 120 millimeters long. Obviously I'm pre-drilling it just to make sure there's no issues when driving those in. At the same time, I'm adding a beam at the bottom. It's actually resting on those 2 bricks as well. That will give me the greatest stability for the climbing wall and the ladder itself. I'm also adding these 2 supports on each side to accommodate the climbing wall and the ladder. And now it's time to install the slats for the platform. I have used some plastic spacers to make sure I'm in the correct places at every single slat. It just makes the job a little bit quicker and easier. In front of this slide, I'm installing this rubber mat. I think we all know what happens usually at the bottom of the slide, and I just don't want to have that mess and puddle or holes in front of the slide. So that's what I went for, this rubber mat thing. And now it's time to install the slide itself. Basically, you just secure it with 2 screws. So I've pre-drilled the holes and I'm driving the screws through. Now we can focus on the climbing wall and the ladder itself. Very simple design, however I found it works really well. So I'm just adding this support beam in the middle here, guys. It will add greater stability and a place for us to install the slats onto. The design of the ladder itself and the climbing wall is super simple. I'm just interchanging long boards with shorter boards. And I have to say it worked out really well. And you just continue adding all the slats. And here it is. I think it came out pretty smart. Obviously I already installed the climbing rocks, but yeah, it looks really cool. I've added some handles as well for the kids to have a little bit easier time to get up there. But yeah, it came out nice. Now it's time to take our attention to the fence itself. Okay, so I'm taking all the timber to the correct sizes, and in the support beams, I want them to partially rest on the top of our platform. Okay, so I'm gonna be cutting out this notch. First of all, using my miter saw to cut a piece like this, and then on my table saw with a jig to cut out the remaining parts of it. So basically we've got some sort of a half lap. I think this will add a lot of strength and stability to the fence itself. And again, I'm just sealing everything up with the product dimensions. However, the slats for the fence itself, I wanted to add a bit of color. So I'm using red, blue, yellow and green, and I think in the end it was the best decision as it added a bit of color to the whole project. Right then, now it's time to assemble the fence. I'm actually going to pre-assemble the fence in my workshop and then just attach it to the main body of the playground. I hope this is the best and easiest way to do it, but yeah, we'll see about that. With the pre-assembly completed, it's now time to install the fence itself. And I have to say, in the end, I believe it was a good decision to actually pre-assemble this, as it was just so much easier to put it in place and you didn't have to mess around too much. And there you go, guys. It's finally finished. It took about probably a week and a half actually to do. Most of the delays were due to the weather. It was absolutely scorching hot, or it was just raining like there was no end to it. Obviously, there's a lot of parts that needed to be painted and sealed correctly because of the outer elements, and each coat of, in total I put 2 coats of everything on every single part, and it more or less takes between 17 to 24 hours for each layer to actually dry properly. So obviously that extends the time, and you need a lot of space for this to actually store it around. So my workshop was just a storage area where these beams were drying up. However, I'm really pleased with the outcome, and most importantly, my kids absolutely love it, and that is super awesome to find out that, you know, something that you spend so much time on it actually will have a purpose. And yeah, it's quite difficult to get them off this, even to shoot this video. So let me take you through a quick tour so you can exactly see what I've got here in this garden playground. Obviously, all the accessories for this, you know, you can add whatever you want. I've just got a very good store, online store, that, you know, had all the bits and pieces like the slides, the swings, everything in one place, and the price was reasonable. But obviously it's a Polish-based store. I'm not sure if they would send abroad. However, I'm going to drop a link down below just in case so you can see what else they've got. So yeah, you can compare what you can get in your local shops as well. You've got the handles here just to make sure to help them out as they walk up the climbing wall or the ladder itself. And obviously a bit of color adds that little detail that I was looking for. And as you can see, if it can hold me, it's gonna hold a few kids on board as well. So no issues with weight limitations, anything like that. As you probably guessed, I'm not the lightest person in the world. So yeah, everything came together quite nicely. I'm really pleased with the project, and I hope you enjoyed today's video as well. Now, I do have some other projects on my channel, and if you want to check those out, I've got some really cool playlists for you just over here. So click on those, and hopefully I'll see you on my next video. Take care.